the Human Resources Committee special meeting. Pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, meetings held remotely will require roll call votes for all action items. Meetings of the Board of Directors of the Cook County Health and Hospital System and its committees are expected to be held remotely until a date to be determined due to the current circumstances concerning COVID-19. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Sorry about that. Director Curry?
Present.
Director Garza is absent. Chair Pendergast?
Present.
And for the record, those directors also present. Director Guggenheim?
Present.
Director Keding?
Present.
Director Story? Director Story? And Board Chair Taylor. Thank you.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay. The next regular meeting of the Human Resources Committee will be held on Thursday, May 19th, 2022 at 12 p.m. Is there any, Madam Secretary, are there any public testimony that has been submitted in advance into the record?
No, we did not receive any today.
Okay, thank you. Well, moving along, we'll go to our report from our Chief Human Resources Officer, Valerie Amos. Will review the metrics and human resource optimization update.
Good morning. This is Valerie Amos, Chief Human Resources Officer. In terms of our metrics, currently HR is working with over 1,700 requests to hires, which are considered our positions. We have hired 160 individuals to date, fiscal year to date, through the end of March, I'd say. And so 93 of those were external, 67 were internal hires. We will continue to work towards improving that metric because our goal is to hire at least 100 individuals per month. And so we are running a little short of that, but we have plans in place to bolster those numbers. Next slide, please. In terms of our activity, we are still working through the number of posted positions for this period has been over 1,400. So we started with over 1,700, 1,400 were posted. We have over 1,100 that closed during this period. A little over 800 of those positions were validated. So we were able to identify candidates who met the minimum qualifications and were referred for interviews. Almost 700 of those completed interviews were about 60% of those who were actually interviewed completed those interviews during this time frame. And then we had offers and 160 of those were filled. So we continue to show this activity report in terms of our funnel. Still working through some of the backlog, as I've mentioned in previous months. And so we are definitely moving towards the right direction. Again, we are looking for additional support and velocity and recruitment effectiveness throughout this process. Next slide, please. In terms of separations, we continue to see a number of separations that unfortunately are really causing some issues with with our employee base. We definitely want to get ahead of the number of separations month by month. As you can tell, we are still trending towards a higher number of separations. In terms of the retirements, of course, we had a number of retirements in the month of December, which also increased that number. We see that the number of resignations, though, for this particular time frame exceeds our retirements this time. So 141 of those were resignations, and discharges were 14. And retirements were 84, which primarily hit the month of December. Next slide, please. So what do we want to do to enhance and recruit effectively? Here are 4 pillars. Here are the things that we are working on: resources, recruiting, technology, and retention. You may have seen this slide before. We are heavily relying on agency, as many of you know. We are recruiting, investing more in recruitment power within the HR team, and we are looking at technology solutions that will allow us to be more scalable and contemporary in our strategies to cover metrics, as well as really onboard individuals within the organization in a more timely manner. And then, of course, retention. Retention resides with not only HR, but the entire organization. So looking for effective recognition and training programs to really grow our own and to promote more career mobility within the organization. Next slide, please. So here's some of the highlights from our 4 anchors. Resourcing, what have we done to support the HR team so that we are, again, a more strategic support function for the rest of the organization? You may have seen in the previous month that we brought in cross-country and RPO, which is recruitment process outsourcing. They have brought in 5 additional recruitment support members to support some of the boots on the ground in terms of recruiting work. They will expand that team to 9 during the week of May 9th. Additionally, we have a contract with Deloitte, who is also one of our external partners, and they will be bringing 8+ resources to assist us with recruiting and hiring. So we will have additional hands on keyboards, folks who can actually move the needle, help us to really recruit with velocity and effectiveness. What are some of our KPIs? We're going to be continuing to measure not only the number of HR employees and HR recruiters, but also what this means in terms of ratios to FTEs. We know today that based on benchmark data, we should have at least one HR representative to manage about 35 vacancies to 50. If they are different vacancies, different titles, if they're the same title, then we can manage up to about 60 to 70 requisitions. Our team is still in excess of 150 to 200 vacancies per recruiter. So this number is still very, very unbalanced. So we want to look to decrease that number, make it more manageable so that the recruiters can really work effectively. In terms of recruiting, Slalom, our external partner, has identified a number of process efficiencies, and we are looking to really produce a more transformational process in the near future. We are also hosting a nursing job fair that is upcoming. It's actually tomorrow, and then we have some more job fairs scheduled for May. In terms of KPIs, we will be looking at the number of vacancies, continue to measure that. We're starting to look at the number of qualified candidates, as well as the offer acceptance ratio. It's really imperative for folks to understand when we are attempting to work with candidates, identify the best talent for the organization. If those candidates decline us, we want to capture all of those reasons, as well as capture the effort, because the number at the end of the chart that you saw on slide 1 depicts who accepted it, not the effort and work that was behind a number of the offers. So we'd like to do a better job of capturing those metrics, reporting out those metrics, because it does tell a story. And then those reasons behind why people are not either accepting our offer, or if the time has been an element as well, which has been a problem in the past. The number of hires per recruiter is also something that we need to capture. And then, of course, the cycle time. Technology. Slalom is also assisting us with our technology review. We have a number of systems within HR that are not integrated, and I did share some of that information with you in previous meetings. But most importantly, we want to have systems that provide a great user experience. So it starts with the applicant tracking system. And so we've been taking a deeper dive into what we can do to increase and enhance the candidate experience. It's really important for the candidate to feel as though their application has gone into the right bucket and that they are being reviewed and that there is some communication back out to them. So we're working on enhancing that candidate experience. Understanding our system functionality, I think, is going to be critical for not only the candidates, but also our metrics. We are today unable to provide real-time metrics. And so we're attempting to work with our business intelligence team, our internal IT team, as well as some other outside connections to develop a job tracker metrics visual dashboard. And you'll see some examples in the upcoming slides, but most importantly, we're attempting to be able to codify how many vacancies are there per recruiter, as well as per hiring manager. What is the time to fill metrics for all of those individuals so that we can have better metrics analytics. In terms of market analysis, it's also imperative for us to determine if we need to move towards cloud-based recruiting platforms. Again, Taleo is a really strong platform, and so we are looking to see what we can do to enhance that functionality and working with our business intelligence team and working with our internal team as well as our BOT partners is going to be extremely imperative for us to ensure that we are standing up the right platform for our size and that it's scalable and that it's also reportable. In terms of retention, really exploring more about our exit survey, determining if we have the right questions. We want to, of course, capture individuals before they exit. So this is a retrospective look at what we have captured to date. I do have data that supports why folks are leaving, and it's a small sample. So we want to do a better job of also ensuring that individuals that are leaving have the opportunity to take the survey prior to leaving, far in advance, so that we can certainly sit down with some of them and understand a bit more. In terms of identifying other ways to engage employees, our Chief Experience Officer and myself, we co-lead the Employee Engagement Committee, and that committee is imperative for identifying recognition programs and other programs that will continue to engage employees. Press Ganey is also our tool that we've utilized to survey engagement across the organization, and we will continue to work with that company to identify action plans and strategies to improve. In terms of KPIs to the right, employee engagement score is really going to be imperative for us to track and trend. Number of promotions, I think, is imperative as well. I mean, if we see that there's internal transfers and promotions, that's something good. Even though we're not adding numbers to the employee base, we want to see that progression. As well as the turnover rate. We need to definitely monitor the attrition and ensure that we have a good game plan to offset that. Next slide, please. Oh, Director Curry. Debbie, I see a hand. My apologies.
Yes, this is Director Curry. Thank you. Could you go back to the slide you just came off of? I have a couple questions. The first, under the resourcing that you mentioned, the recruitment support that's being added, expanded team in 9, is that going to happen during the week of the 9th, or has it happened already and then there's a second tranche here?
Sure. So the 5 individuals from cross country, they've been with us since March, the first week in March. So they've been working, they've been training, observing. They now have a portfolio of positions as well. And so they've been engaged. And so they're on site this week. They show up from their different states and they work with us on site as well as virtually. They're going to provide additional resources during the week of May 9th. Okay. So that expands the team, correct.
Okay. And then with the addition of Deloitte, the number that caught my interest was the ratio of open positions or recruiting positions to person from 1 to 35, which sounds like the ideal or what you're trying to get to, is currently at 200 or more. So with these additional staff coming on, I know the ratio itself will change very quickly. When do you expect to see some of the mitigation, though, actually seeing that final number of expected recruitment to begin to increase?
That's a really good question, Director Curry. We believe that with the job fairs and some plans that we have made to our recruiting processes will help to drive those numbers. Will it help drive numbers across the organization? We probably won't see 100% of that number change. However, we're going to see pockets change. And we probably won't see that change for a couple of months because these individuals have to come aboard. They have to learn our system. They have to understand our employment plan and our recruiting processes and everything that's associated with it. So that wrap up time and training time is critical. And then we have to ensure that they are capable and competent. These are all qualified recruiters that we're bringing aboard, but they have not been necessarily exposed to the way that we recruit within our organization. So I would probably say within the next 2 to 3 months, we're going to see stronger numbers as we continue to rebuild the team.
So would it be fair to say expectations maybe another quarter before we start seeing some of the actual results occur? That's obviously the metric there, end game, what we're trying to get to.
Absolutely. And then building on from there, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. I mean, we're going to see the true realization for this process. We have to unpack quite a number of positions that have stalled because we haven't had those resources to really focus on them. So that's what I meant by velocity and effectiveness. We all want to do a good job, but again, we want to make certain that we take care of the ones who've been in the queue for a bit, and then those that low-hanging fruit, which are those offers. That has been kind of our priority for the past 6 months, to focus on offers before we continue to post new jobs and cause a backlog.
And lastly, the other change that caught me, that for, I believe in the first time since I've been on the board, the actual resignations exceeded retirements. So retirements being a pretty planned activity, do you have information going forward, and it's still relatively flat, what you expect in terms of returns between now and the end of the year?
In terms of the number of retirements, was your question?
Retirement prospectively, yes.
We do monitor the number of employees based on their years of service at the organization. And we do have a metric. I don't have it at top of mind, but we do pay special attention to that. And that's why it's imperative for us to hire a minimum of 100 externals a month. And I know that that sounds probably not as aggressive to folks who are on the call, but for our organization, given the number of vacancies that we have, that would be quite a feat for us. We'd like to hire many more, 200, 300, but to start with 100 as the baseline will actually set us on target to offset those number of retirements and resignations if we continue to trend this way. Now, my goal would be to, of course, exceed 100 externally, but that would be the start.
Now, you answered my question. You've already baked in something to account for the expected retirements going forward. This would be priced.
Correct.
Thank you.
No problem.
A question.
Sure.
Or comment, I'm not sure which. What's striking to me is, as you talk about the longer term solutions, is that we're losing ground every month. Resignations exceeding external hires. And I understand you can't turn the external hire spigot on overnight. That's for all of the reasons you've done an excellent job outlining, that's a longer term proposition. That means two things. One is we either need to have plans in place to continue to accelerate, not just maintain, but accelerate our use of contract and external resources, or we need to stem the tide of resignations. Because right now, we're having more resignations in a quarter than we're bringing in people. So here again is something that's not going to be simple, and many of the factors are beyond any one hospital's control. But man, we are really fighting uphill if we can't slow down the resignations.
Heartily agree with you. And I think that that's why we are rebuilding the team to also bring in talent. We have hired a manager of organizational development and performance, and we'd like to rebuild that particular team to work in conjunction with not only our chief experience officer, but many departmental leaders across the organization so that we can develop more strategic action plans to focus on our employees, what works, what does not, what's happening, what drives you away. I mean, we know that there's a lot in the market. I follow the market trends. We talked about the Great Resignation about 4 months or so ago. So we knew that healthcare workers were leaving healthcare and just, again, leading the pack. So we understand why some of that, we saw burnout. We saw, folks just making different life choices in general. And so I won't rehash all of that, but we understand that the market has changed tremendously. There's high competition. We'd like to also be more market competitive. And so as part of the last bullet on this slide, determining market salary competitiveness, we understand that a number of our positions are governed by CBAs, and that's, something that we work with, but there are some roles that are not governed by CBAs. So we have to just determine if, in fact, we are more contemporary in the market as it relates to our benefits, our salaries, and so forth. And so we want to be more strategic. We want to also host more events. And so that's why this will be our 5th job fair that we are hosting tomorrow in the last 9-10 months. So we're pretty excited about it, but we need to also convert those number of candidates who show up to hires. And that's where we are still working to drive change. But I appreciate your comments, Director Ketting. I think that this is extremely, noteworthy. Retention is key. Other questions? Next slide, please. Oh, I see another hand. I'm sorry, Director Story.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Did we see a slide, or have you provided us with information about the reasons during the exit interviews, the reasons that individuals give for leaving the organization? Did I see that slide?
That slide is not in this presentation. I can provide that information to you because I did look at all of the reasons, looked at the number of individuals who had completed the exit interview, which was a small number. And so we have some work to do internally from an HR perspective to ensure that those individuals who are leaving has an opportunity to complete the exit survey, primarily, we hope, before they leave. If not, then after. But I can certainly bring that information back to the board.
Okay, I would like to ask, if you may, the information that you share with us relative to those individuals who made a conscious decision to re-enter the job market, either through retirement or whatever reason they give. Would you just please provide in a simple matrix whatever that N is, meaning the number of individuals who separated from the organization and their reasons over some period of time? If you could do that, I am sure other directors would appreciate seeing that. The follow-up question I have real quick. When I first arrived, I remember hearing about a press Ganey survey.
That's correct.
Is that an annual survey that CCH does? And if so, when we will receive the results from the press Ganey survey?
So our Press Ganey survey, as I understand, is an annual survey. We launched the Culture of Safety Pulse survey back in October of last year. And so in conjunction with our quality team, that was launched. And so I'm happy to, bring in my colleagues or share the results as well from that Pulse survey. We will have a full survey this upcoming fall. That is what's planned. So I believe that there may have been a full survey the year prior, not 2021, but I believe 2020 was a full survey. And then we had a pulse survey last fall, and then this one. And I can verify those particular dates because some of that predated me. Okay. Happy to bring the results. Other questions? Okay. So in terms of timeline, I think it's imperative for you to also understand where we are. As you can see, we're in April. The optimization process started in March, and we are just, a little over 6 weeks into it. So here's future state recommendation, process designs. Again, we're looking at processes, we're looking at transformation, we're looking at, ways to become more efficient. Thus, Slalom is here to assist us in terms of technology optimization, reviewing all of our systems, ensuring that we have the right scalable solutions. If not, then we're looking for ways to make recommendation, work with our partners across the organization to develop something that works for us. And then last but not least, employee engagement. Again, it's not holistically owned by HR, is owned by the organization, but we certainly need to lead it in conjunction with our partners across the organization. So pulling together some strategies and understanding what that looks like across the board, I think is going to be imperative. Next slide, please. In terms of our recent recruitment fair, here is the managed care job fair. Now, this job fair was held in January. There were over 130 attendees. 69 of those were minimally qualified in terms of the candidate number. So let me pause there and explain 69. 69, it wasn't unique candidates. 69 folks actually applied, they were interviewed, and some interviewed for multiple positions, as they should, because there were 11 different job titles that were supported at this job fair. So some people applied to multiple positions. So at the end of the day, the department indicated that we would like 69 folks to be considered. Of the 69, 59 of those were unique offers. 19 people have accepted. 35 folks are still in process. And the reason they're in process is because we took a bold leap of faith and we included positions that were still kind of in the infancy stages of posting. And we needed to ensure that from a CBA perspective, all of the positions had been posted internally, vetted accordingly before we can proceed with external offers. So 111 positions were being represented over 11 titles at this job fair. Now, our goal is to finalize this because we have a number of internals who were also very interested in some of these positions. So before I can give you the final rollout, this is the preliminary rollout. Next slide. Oh, question.
Yeah,
I'm
this
sorry.
is a preliminary. In terms of reasons for the offers that were declined, I know it's just a 5, but looking across the previous job fairs, what are some of the reasons that are provided, or are we getting that information as to why folks are declining? Is it salary? I mean, do you have a sense of what those reasons are?
Yes, thank you so much, Director Prendergast. We do. We have been capturing that information, and it's my understanding from those 5 is primarily salary at this point. And in the previous job fairs, we have been capturing that as well. Shift was a big issue with some of the previous job fairs. And tomorrow's job fair, most of those positions are night shifts. So we're going to determine how many of those we're able to seal the deal for. And just as a sneak preview, as one of our enhancements to our process, we will no longer have to wait to extend offers as long as all of those positions have been posted internally, vetted internally. At tomorrow's job fair, we will be able to extend contingent offers on site before individuals leave the organization. That is our plan, as long as they are minimally qualified and the interviewing panelists deem them appropriate for offers. So that is a huge step for us so that we won't have the backlog and the, several weeks of waiting. So that's a victorious opportunity for us. Other questions, comments? Here's an example of our visual dashboard. Working with Slalom, we'd like to identify where we are at every step and stage within kind of a tracker or dashboard. This is merely an example. It doesn't depict real-time data, but we are looking to pull something together that's more meaningful, visual, so that individuals who, they can touch this dashboard and understand where they are in the process versus copious emails back and forth, so that we can share more transparency and visibility into the processes. The next 2 slides, please, Debbie. Here's an example of a visual by job. So we will have the ability to depict the number of nursing vacancies, physician vacancies, and where we are in the process, so we can stratify it by job titles. Next slide, please. By hiring teams as well, so by managers' names to the left, and to the right by the recruiters' names as well. So those are the larger numbers that you see in terms of the recruiter numbers of vacancies per recruiter. Next slide, please. Any questions?
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Amos. Okay, well, there are no action items that are being presented for this meeting. We will have a closed session, and so I would like to have a motion to go into the closed meeting pursuant to the following exceptions to the Open Meetings Act. 5 ILCS, a roll call vote will be needed. Madam Secretary, can you call the roll, please?
Chair Prendergast, I think we need to have a mover and a seconder.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
So moved.
And I think you can second it yourself.
Okay, and I'd like to second it. Now,
On the motion to go into closed session, aye or nay, Director Curry?
Aye.
Mr. Garza is absent. And Chair Prendergast?
aye.
1 absent.
Okay, so we will disconnect from this open meeting and connect to the closed meeting.